You see, we can feed the stomach with concentrates. We can supply microfilm for reading, recreation, even movies of a sort. We can pump oxygen in and waste material out. But there's one thing we can't simulate. That's a very basic need. Man's hunger for companionship. The barrier of loneliness. That's one thing we haven't licked yet.
Where is everybody? Let me tell you a story. I live close to the forest. To be exact, towards the forest. Because about 100 meters from the building where I live, I can see the dense pines, hornbeam, and other trees in the woods. Almost through the entire year, except during the most cold days. A bird singing can be heard from the branches of the trees. It is like the trees themselves are talking to each other. Now, sometimes, a pack of pigeons and sparrows arrive at my window, looking with innocent curiosity inside and around my room, and maybe hoping to get some crumbs from the poor guy locked inside. They probably wonder what is going on there. Well, nothing special really, to be honest. Because while I sit behind the computer to write or record such an inspiring article like the current one, reading a book, eating my lunch, cleaning the room, or just observing the falling snowflakes behind the window, and the never-ending stream of disturbing people inside their vehicles. Just the whole world is moving and changing at preposterous speeds, that even if the birds were consciously aware of all of it, it just wouldn't matter to anyone. Behind my back is my personal wooden library, with all of my dozens of precious books, which pages are also made of wood. So in other words, it can be said that I do actually live inside the forest. Or maybe the forest lives inside me. Or maybe both. Without reading books, all birds are clever creatures. Let's take the raven, for example. Like all the corvids, it is an intelligent bird. It can imitate sounds and also to learn words. I have not met a talking raven, but someday that may happen for sure. Many times I have had conversations with friends and people, and suddenly something strange happens. A shadowy curtain falls between me and that person, and all the desperation in the world pours down on me like a giant wave from the ocean. That cannot happen when you have contact with any bird. I have met jaybirds, eagles, sparrows, woodpeckers, and many other winged specimens while roaming the vast forests around the city and on my village deep inside the countryside. But I have never had the opportunity to gaze at them at a very close range and give them some food. The jaybird, for example, eats a variety of foods like seeds, acorns, and other nuts. And if they are in sufficient quantities, It stores them in secret places for the winter. Sometimes it loses them or forgets about them, and they turn into a new group of trees. Nature works its magic. A bird just planted a tree. I wonder why. I wonder why humans don't do that simple act anymore. It seems that birds are the most noble beings in that regard. Then what is the next logical thing for a bird to do? Well, the trees are planted and they grow tall enough to become ready to be chopped down with chainsaws and axes by people and made into all sorts of things like tables, beds, sofas, desks, and libraries. Completely natural, quote unquote, thing to do. Humans works Humans work their magic. I tell myself I bear witness to all the happenings inside the forest and outside, and that I cannot do much besides to plant some trees myself. But I also comfort myself with the fact that when I peck the words and letters from a good book, I'm in a sudden hurry to store them in my head and to spread the knowledge all around me. I'm just hoping that my heretical excitement will fire up and kickstart some hungry for awakening type of minds and unleash their creativity so that it can bring life to a new spiritual forest. Maybe not all from what I have read is 100% understood by my conscious mind, but that's why I seek people who I never met before, and I desperately look for hidden roads and places in the wilderness, so that they can all shed some light and pour meaning into my being. I really doubt there are such beings in my surroundings, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, I search and eventually discover gems here and there. The need of mutual experience regarding reading, knowledge, and general rules of living are paramount. Gnosis is the key. But why? Well, mainly from a linguistic point of view, it's all about the words and the language. Words, these wondrous seeds, they help us to understand each other, to unite, to become even closer. The jaybird standing on my window, twisting its head around and about, jumping in one place and absorbing reality with such thirst that even I begin to envy. After some time, the whole curiosity thing becomes dull and boring. And here we go. It's spreading its wings and it flies to whatever it wants, to wherever it wants. Now, that I really cannot do. I'm watching with amazement until I lose it from sight behind the branches. And I fool myself that I can fly on the wings of my thoughts. Alas, it is far from flying. It's maybe a soft form of levitation or meditation, but the process is entirely different from the actual flight. The wind does not make my fur go wild, well, except my hair sometimes during windy days, and I don't tear up the skies with my energetically charged body that is on the brink of ecstatic trip to other dimensions. I'm quite satisfied with all I've already got. I'm not a greedy, egocentrical, or highly narcissistic individual. Thanks, but no thanks, God. I need no wings to prove myself or the world that I can soar above the unfamiliar and the mundane meat sack incarnations that gave themselves titles and tools so that they can be close to the clouds and outfly birds and spirits. I can go and observe from the hill. The experience is almost identical. The modern human being lives in a world of immediacy and of desire to reason and compare. Look at me, I can fly. Look at me, I can drive faster. Or look at me, I have the latest iPhone. No, look at me, I have expensive clothes in a car. And look at me, I'm a dead corpse in the ground. Look at all these people. Titles and labels. Labels and titles. No one's impressed nowadays. The artificial hype, the envy, and the hyper-ego have been placed there for a specific reason. It is not natural. None of it. I need no titles or labels. I am just quietly observing the forest from my small corner of the universe, behind my wooden library made from those murdered trees that I mentioned before. Explanations and excuses are not in my menu, and I also have a very strict diet. Unpleasant words and ugly language can only make your brain and my brain obese, and no one wants to get to the hospital after some uncontrolled, quote unquote, eating habit and be forced to sit on a bench close to a tribe of meat golems and get a cheap prescription from the all-knowing doctors for Prozac. Myself and those birds are only divided by a thin sheet of glass. Who's to say and make a final statement that birds don't like being around humans, eh? After all, the reason why they're coming by from the woods and from the inside of the branches of the trees tells you quite a lot, isn't it? If, of course, one has eyes to see and ears to hear. It tells you in a very symbolic way that they are taking flight from home, so that they can return home. That way of viewing and seeing the world and all its life forms and streams of consciousness is the way our ancient ancestors lived their everyday lives and how they experienced reality. Through animism, the doors of perception are cleansed, and the reality behind the reality appears, even more real than the previous day before. Welcome to the pleroma. Welcome to your new life, if you can take it.